Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Hold on, let me see who somebody's buzzing me. I hope it's not one of the students. Hold on, let me see. Let me see. Somebody cannot get the link to the class. Okay, that's not bad. Thank you all for being here. I wanna start out first by saying that the conversation we had last week was a little bit adult conversation about how we have to be very careful during the transit to understand the role that, as we are facing all of these fear challenges activated by multiple things, not only the climate change events, but also social, political, financial issue that are creating loss experiences and grief experiences for all of us. And as these things are happening, and sometimes multiple sources happening simultaneously at the same time, there is and it didn't occur to me at first, because as I was experiencing all of this going back 5 years, I was putting out fires one by one. I didn't realize that there was an orchestrated effort, okay? Because I was too much engulfed in each individual experiences. And as I became more aware that there was a coordinated effort, there was a kind of invisible puppet master that's orchestrating these kind of challenges invisibly in the back, I begin to say to myself, I need to pray for safe passage and protection from that being, from that energy and that consciousness. There are multiple names for it. So the Native American called it reticle. They call it the adversary. There are multiple names, okay? The Kabbalists call it Satan. And I want you to, I want to go a little bit over what that energy is and how we need to address it. I need to expand it slightly for you so that you can begin to get a grasp on it. This is not a fear-based conversation. This is knowledge that hopefully will bring wisdom and, more importantly, liberation in your life. So, according to the Kabbalah, in the beginning, there existed only an infinite desire to give and nothing else. But that desire to give was not self-aware, because it was everywhere and it was only it. In order for you to know that you exist, you have to have a reflection, an outside, a mirror. So it emptied a space from itself and created a mirror, an infinite desire to receive. And for a while, the desire to receive and the desire to give existed in a perfect alchemical marriage, where the receiver would only think of what it wanted and the giver would automatically give it. Now, in return, as long as the receiver was in gratitude, the giver was fed back, closing the infinity loop. But as it happens, something unexpected occurred. Because when you keep getting and getting and getting and getting, this is like children. You keep getting gifts, gifts. At some point, there is a sense of entitlement. So the receiver, after a while, begin to be entitled. And, I don't want this gift. No, I want that. And, becoming spoiled. And because of this, what ended up happening is that there was the emancipation of a feeling of undeservedness, that the receiver felt that all of these gifts were coming for free, that it needed either to earn it or to somehow give something more than just gratitude, to do exactly what the giver was doing to actually give back. And since the roles were set and it was not possible, at some point the receiver said, no, I don't want any more gifts. And at that point, there was a contraction for the receiver to the point that was no bigger than the tip of my finger. And from that point of severe extreme contraction, the receiver, there was a spiritual crisis. And so the receiver got to a point where it realized I made a mistake because I was infinite before. Now I'm just a tiny dot. Come back to me, restore everything the way it was. I'm so sorry I said this. But the giver knew that it could fulfill all the gifts, all the wishes, and everything else that the receiver wanted, but it could not remove the shame, the undeservedness. And so the receiver then, the giver then came back and touched the giver came and touched back the receiver and shattered it in a gigantic spiritual detonation and created a bubble or a stage that we call universe, in which all the pieces that were fragmented and shattered out, that was infinity or the mirror of God, were now in planets, species, entities, and so on and so forth, having to learn and to give and receive from each other so that they can remove the original shame, the original undeservedness. And there's a reason I'm repeating this, because I've said this before in all videos and in all classes. I just want to make sure that we remember this, because it's pertinent to what we're going through right now. Because as we're going through the challenges and the experiences that we're going through right now, what the original, that were the giver also created at that moment when it exploded everything out, shattered the receiver, it created a resistance. It created a force that the Kabbalah calls Satan, which literally translates as excrement, who was designed to make things difficult so that we can, meaning us as receivers, so that we can, at the end, when we overcome the resistance, we can feel I struggle and I achieve something. And therefore what's coming, what the universe was going to give me for free, I now deserve to have it because I overcame this. I want you to think about your life right now and what's going on in it, and what resistance or what challenge that you're facing and what struggle you're going through in the context of what I just said. That whatever the struggle is, not a small, medium, or large, or extra large, or whatever the case may be, that you're going through you're trying to remove a shame. The solution to your problem, the universe wants to give it to you for free. But in order for you to accept it, you have to go to this challenge as a way to allow yourself to receive what the universe is trying to give you for free. And I want you to understand this, because whatever is going on in your life right now, whatever loss, because the emotion that most people on the planet are experiencing right now, it's loss and grief. We're all losing something, or we're in the fear of losing something, whether it's control, identity, money, job, family members, friends, etc., etc. There's a sense of loss. So that grief and that sense of loss it's part of the resistance, because that force is not a being with a pitchfork in his hand and a long red tail. That force is everywhere. It permeates, it's even in our own body, it's everywhere, and it's trying to help us by creating a resistance. If you can think of the giver and the receiver as a positive electrical charge and a negative electrical charge, in order for not to be a spark between the positive and the negative, there has to be a resistance in electricity, which is a bunch of wires that are turned together to allow that to become either heat or the light. It's the exact same thing in electricity as it is in the rest of the universe. That resistance is the energy or the consciousness called Satan. I want you to understand what I'm saying, and I'm not justifying the resistance. I'm not trying to whitewash it or make it better. I'm telling you what the Kabbalah is saying, okay? And from a Kabbalistic understanding, it's not a question of demonization of that force, but it's a question of understanding what that force is. And let me tell you something, when you're going through the resistance and that force, you will struggle, because the shot of electricity to pass, to get from one point, from positive pole to negative pole, depending on how tight those wires are, it will struggle to get through it. But if you bring the positive and the negative directly together, it's going to create a spark and explosion. They're going to cancel each other out. This is what happened when you put your hand in a socket and you get shocked. But electricity does all kinds of things: heat, light bulb, all kind of phenomenal things, because there is resistance. So if we can apply that knowledge in a very scientific way, we can begin to understand. Because if you don't know and you're not aware and you don't have the knowledge base, you will not be able to handle what's going on right now. Because these bombardment, in other words, like today is a phenomenal day, area right now. The energy is so high and so powerful that the bliss, it's like the light itself, the sunlight feels too much. Like we're super lit, we're overlit. It feels way too much. And the euphoria, the general feeling of euphoria, it's so powerful and so potent. And these are the high. Of course, there are lows as well when the resistance begins to come in. But when this is only the bridge leading to the new earth. And if we're going to inherit a world in which this is what we're going to experience and more, we have to feel deserving for of it, and therefore the challenges that we're experiencing right now. And so, in my case, the situation that presented itself for me is that I was dealing with one piece of resistance at a time, one at a time. I'm like, this is the problem here. Let me pray to Archangel Michael or to whomever as a spiritual being to come in to help me overcome this challenge. Let me pray to this. I didn't realize at any point that the entity or the consciousness that permeates everything called Satan was responsible for all of them together. I was putting out fires piece by piece. Piece by piece, piece by piece, piece by piece. And in some ways, that was a mistake. Of course, everything happened in the time it was supposed to happen. It took me 5 years to learn this, but I got to a point right now where I have a different awareness. Maybe it's because I passed through so many of these resistance that the awareness popped for me. It's like a glass ceiling got broken, and I realized, oh my God, there was something else going on. That I need to act and behave in a completely different manner. So I started to do the Archangel Michael sword prayer in a very different way, whereas I did it not directed at individual little fire, but at asking the God or the spiritual being, and Archangel Michael in this instance, to help me banish and remove the resistance, help me overcome the resistance, help me pass through this test faster, so that I can accept the blessing and the gift that the universe is going to give me. I can tell you personally, I've done this about a week ago, and I can tell you right now that during the process, it was intense for me, intense. Like every time I light one of the candles, it would spatter. I mean, it was intense. Health crisis, whatever it is that you're facing, financial crisis. As I did this, and not only that, but there are patterns of habitual thinking that would take me into poverty consciousness. and would cause me to think in a very, to position myself in a state of lack that became so clear, because I was doing it 3 times a day. It takes 5 minutes to do 3 times a day. Throughout the rest of the day, all these kind of bleed through would show up, showing me in that instance of me walking around or doing my work or doing that or the other, talking to a client. All of a sudden, the awareness came. That pattern of thinking that's going on right now in your head, that's lack consciousness. That's you not accepting that the universe can gift you. This is you putting a blockage. This is resistance. That pattern has to go. It was extremely revelatory for me. One after another, after another, after another, I kept seeing places in which there were these habitual way that I have been for this entire incarnation, that was contaminated by lack consciousness that I was completely unaware of. Because Archangel Michael holds the sword of justice and the fiery sword, and that sword illuminated me. And I saw a whole bunch of stuff. Not only that, but my dream changed. I began to have an intense dream. The one dream that was very peculiar, it was my mother who passed away last year that came in my dream. And she revealed something to me, that there was a when I interpreted the dream, I realized that she was trying to tell me that there was a deceit, that there's something in my environment that's very close to me that's going to be revealed to me that has a deceit in it. And I got that this morning. That revelation came this morning. I saw exactly what it was. And in the dream, 2 days later, was I dreamed of 2 beautiful little turtles, small little turtles. And when you, in a lot of tradition, dreaming of turtle is a symbol of immortality, and it's a symbol of rebirth, and it's a beautiful symbol. But they were small, they were tiny. And I remember not only talking to them, but touching them, touching their little head. And I was like, I was fascinated by them. And again, it's still in process, because, and again, I think I have never done, and I've done that prayer so many times, I've never done it with that kind of intention. And it brought so much, I got so much value out of this. So much value. You may not realize this, but whatever challenge that you're facing right now, if you do the Archangel Michael sword like I am telling you to do it, you're going to get a lot of yield out of this. You're going to get a lot of information, a lot of detail, a lot of revelation will come forth for you. Okay? And you will know a lot more about yourself and in the way in which you're clipping your own wings. You're allowing the resistance to limit you and saying, I can't accept this. In other words, original bread of shame. I can't accept this. No, I'm receiving, the gift is too much. Whereas the universe is saying, I want to give it to you right now. I'm going to give all of it to you. So that was immense for me. And all of you have knew what that prayer is, and you have it. I would highly recommend that you do the prayer with that kind of intention. Not putting out the small fire, like, for example, if you have a grief or a loss of something and you're trying to work around that grief, that loss, not plugging little fires, but going over the big resistance and asking Archangel Michael to illuminate you, to overlight you, so that that resistance will be removed. Any questions or any comments?
Yes, Pierre, the idea of the resistance being part of the plan to help us is something I'm trying to understand while we're asking for it to be removed.
Yes.
It almost feels like it deserves or should be present so that we can achieve, overcome, and feel deserving. How does that equate? Both seem to be opposites.
They are not necessarily opposite. They are degrees to all things. Job, story of Job in the Bible, Job was the favorite of God, and he was rich. He had everything. And he was righteous. He had everything. And God, Satan went to God and asked God and said, God, should I test him? And God said, yes. And he became homeless. He lost everything. And there is no reason why any of us should be poor and should be on the street and be homeless. Unless for whatever reason you want to marinate on it and you think that's what you should have. In other words, choice is everything. I am trying to tell you that giving the role that the resistance play as opposed to the role that the giver plays, we can make a choice. And if you've been suffering long enough, you can make a choice and say, I don't want suffering anymore. I'm trying to give you a way out if this is your choice. If at this point you still want to suffer and you think it's more noble. I mean, when I grew up Catholic, suffering was noble. And again, these are the pattern where like this came up for me. Because when I dreamed of my mother, all my religious background came up because I learned it from her. As a Christian, you have to be like Christ and you have to be crucified. Suffering is noble. And therefore, accepting the resistance and let it, slap you left and right and upside the head and up the butt and in every which way, accept it because that's what it is. What I'm saying is that it's a lie. You are a co-creator with God. If you decide tomorrow to illumination and to contemplation that all of it is an illusion and you don't have to accept any of it, it will disappear like that. If you can remove your shame and your undeservedness, so it's to the degree to which, okay, so I didn't come to that realization all at once, Janice. You know a little bit of the background of the story, and no one really knows it completely because I tend to hold things to myself. 5 years of severe difficulties. And I'm not at a point where I realize I don't need to suffer anymore. I'm done. And I'm hoping that you can learn by grace, by my personal experience. You don't need to spend 5-7 years in the state that in the kind of difficulties that I experienced. And by the way, I had shared with you the last time I spoke that I don't know, given all the channeling, all the counseling and the teaching and everything else that I've been doing, even I'm going through all of this, right? I'm being challenged and besieged by all kinds of things, and somehow I'm still managing to whole night. Every year I do the Wesak Festival. It gets better and better every year. The energy is so powerful, even though I have all these other resistance issues that are all around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I asked Spirit, if I didn't have these issues, I probably would have ascended and be in a completely different scale. I heard so clearly, my guide said to me, no, you're being trained for a greater challenge that's to come for the world. And giving the karma that you have, giving the role and the purpose that you have accepted to fulfill in this life, that resistance was like a mean trainer at the gym telling you to do more crunches.
Mm-hmm. That's a thought that I've had earlier today, actually, that the struggle that we go through is also helping us to have compassion and understanding for those that may be suffering in the same way. But basically, I guess what my question now would be asking for the struggle to be removed. Is that necessary if you have removed it yourself through whatever process, through the prayers to Archangel Michael, the patterns of habitual thinking that are false, that are negative? In other words, if you were able to remove those, will the resistance and the struggle go away by themselves?
What I can say to you is two things, Janice. One is that if you can intellectually and mentally get to a point where you see the pattern and you can remove them. I could not see the pattern until I did the prayer. Do you understand? I was so overwhelmed inside of it, I couldn't see them.
Yeah.
So the prayer is because I was, you know, in medicine, they talk often about you having an acute condition. So when you're deep in it and you're overwhelmed and you're in an acute condition, there are certain things you do that's very different than if you have something that's a mild or systemic condition. I didn't see them. Like the connection to my entire religious background and all this, I didn't see it. I didn't see the importance of it. And all of a sudden, that dream with my mother, all of a sudden, all of the stuff came back. I'm like, oh my God, I've been conditioned to be in lack and to accept lack as being normal. There is nowhere in the way I grew up where abundance and flow, and I've shared this with you. I told you I met this man, and I thought this man was an alien. To a friend of mine who kept saying, money is easy, it's not a problem. And for him, it was never a problem. When I met him, I thought he was an alien. Because I exist in a completely different bubble and I'm creating a different reality. He's not an alien, he just has a different way. He's framing his awareness. And the people who are really the billionaire, this is the consciousness they're in. Everything they touch turns into gold. Because they've removed their shame. They removed the resistance.
Yes. And now if we could relate to Lakshmi and the teaching about that abundance of all good things flowing to us, if we I guess ask and perhaps align with that, are we talking about the same thing?
Yes, yes. And in fact, there's a way to ask Lakshmi. Because Lakshmi is the aspect of God that gives. That's the giver. It's the cornucopia of abundance. It's the giver. So that part, you have to talk to her like you're talking to your mother. But don't whine. Don't keep asking for the same thing over and over again. Once your resistance are removed and you're in a place where you know you're deserving of what you're asking for, just ask. Mother Lakshmi, Goddess Lakshmi, I desire to have abundance and flow in this text. So I said, whether it's money, and stop clipping your own wing by saying, I want $100. This is BS. Ask for the real amount that you need. Because to Lakshmi, who is abundance and that gives to everyone, it means nothing. You're the one that feels undeserving of it. And it's not just money, it's health, it's happiness, it's joy, it's peace.
And asking for it still requires that you remove the programming.
Yes.
It is the program that is running behind the consciousness that creates that lack.
That's correct. That's correct. And this is where Archangel Michael can give you a hands up.
Right.
When you say that prayer, it will help you. It will block all of that resistance out of the way.
Thank you.
In the Kabbalah, by the way, Rosh Hashanah is the 48 hours in which that force, that energy, that consciousness called Satan, disconnect with the earth. This is why that celebration is so important. And the way the Kabbalist wants you to do it is that if you keep behaving in the same lack consciousness during that 48 hours is a tabula rasa. It's a blank slate. So if you keep behaving in the same consciousness, in the same manner, and acting in the same way, when it reconnect at sundown 48 hours later, it will activate for the next 12 months the exact same pattern. But if for that opening, you behave in a completely different manner, and you release different intention, and you see yourself like this man, money is easy, it's not a problem. Happiness is easy, joy is easy, love is, health is, I'm immortal, there's nothing wrong with me. And if you can exist in that kind of consciousness during, and whatever your health condition and what you're struggling with, understanding like this, it's gone. Because the reason you're struggling with it, it's the resistance. And that resistance is your own shame and undeservedness, ultimately. Does that make any sense, Janice?
Just, yeah, I'm digesting.
Oh, good.
The point I think on the bottom of all of our discussion is the resistance will be removed when you've had enough and you have come to a place of understanding of your programming, and then at a certain point when you feel that you achieved that, you still may need to ask Archangel Michael for help in removing the pattern that continues to go on. I guess it won't happen automatically.
It won't happen automatically by you having intellectual understanding.
Right.
It's not just a matter of deprogramming, because the pattern also systemic. Okay, in my case, we're talking about an ancestral curse or an ancestral pattern that's epigenetic. Do you understand how deep that is? So when I begin to realize this, I realize by myself I can't overcome all of this. It's epigenetic. It's going back. We had an ancestor 5 generations back that was a multimillionaire that has a lot of money. But since my great grandmother, my great grandfather, since then we've been in poverty consciousness. We have this memory of my great grandmother knew her grandfather, and she used to talk about him all the time with great fondness. But when I knew her, when I happened to have known her, she died when she was 98. I knew I must have been about, I don't know, in my early teen at the time, and I remember her saying very clearly, talk fondly about him, but it was almost like a fairy tale. Because when I observe her and the condition that she, my grandmother, my family were in, they were all in lack and they were struggling. That thing was almost like a fairy tale. So it's epigenetic. By myself, I can't remove what 5 generations, the damage in my wiring that 5 generations has done. I need help. And I'm asking Archangel Michael through this prayer to give me the help.
And will that backflow once you have that?
Yes. Yes. And as a matter of fact, again, this is why I'm having all these dreams. I'm having all this insight. And I'm only at the beginning of this. I did 1 cycle only of the prayer. I'm going to do a few more cycles. And I'm beginning to realize, I'm like, oh my God, look at all these things. And you don't realize this. There are people and situations in your life that you exist in right now, that you have accepted, because of the conditioning. And once you go through this, you will literally purge all these things out of your life, because you will realize you deserve better. There are certain people you're talking to, there are certain relationships you have, there are certain groups that you're communicating with, that, and this is true even in a simple marriage. Okay, if one member of the couple is making a certain amount of money, the other one is making less, and all of a sudden the one that's making less all of a sudden is making a lot more, in a lot of cases it caused such rift and such problem in the relationship, because the energetic dynamics change, that often marriage break because of this. I've witnessed it in many of my clients. Sometimes it survives, but a lot of time it's rearranged. There's a lot of, for example, a lot of women are making a lot more money right now than their husband, whereas they may have started the marriage where the husband was making the more money, and all of a sudden, and then they have to become, in some instances, stay-at-home dad. Some men cannot make that transition. They can't do it. Others can, but some can't.
I think we can all relate in some way to the epigenetic generational programming that in one way or the other, in one area of life or another, has kept us in a pattern that we'd rather not have. So it also is healing to the other family that may exist currently, genetically, as well as back. And that's a lovely thought to have as well.
Absolutely, Janice. That's well said, because once you heal yourself, and more to the point, because there is no time and space. Once you heal yourself and heal the epigenetic imprint in you, you heal your generation back. So as I heal myself, 4 generations going back, even though they might not be in the flesh anymore, wherever they are, I will be healing them. Because I'm entangled with them. Call you back.
Thank you, Pierre.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm trying to, again, that epigenetic part is immense, because if you grow up in poverty and struggle, we ate 3 meals a day. I grew up, I didn't realize I didn't have a lot. I only realized that when I came to the States. But the conversation I was having in my house, I overheard my mother talk about, because she was raising 4 kids alone, was always a struggle about money. Where I'm going to get the money to get your uniforms? I have to pay your tuition for school. Where are we going to get the money? How are we going to, it was always this conversation about not having. Although somehow miraculously the food was always cooked on the table. Somehow miraculously, even though she said she doesn't have any money, somehow, she sent somebody to the market, the food was always there. That created a certain imprint. And that imprint is what I'm asking the Archangel Michael and that current cycle to help me break, so that I can move with ease. I'm done. I'm done with the suffering. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. There's no reason for it. Whatever the shame was, I've paid the price already. I paid it. I'm now ready to move in my next era, which is the era of abundance, the era of flow, the era of ease, and unconditional love and immortality. I'm ready.
Mhm.
As I said, from an intellectual standpoint, if I was to look for this, I would never get it. Because some of it through the prayer came in my dreams.
Mhm.
Some of the breakthroughs came in my dreams. And honestly, I think, and again, depending on your karma, when you ask Lashmi for something, your karma will be factored in. Because if you want to be the next Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, maybe that's not your karma in this lifetime. I know what my purpose is, and I'm asking for the ease and the flow and the abundance that I need to fulfill that purpose. Because your karma has to factor in. So if you know your bliss, if you know what it is that you're good at, and that's your bliss, that's the part that make your soul come alive. When you're asking Lashmi, once you pass that cycle, that should factor into what you're asking.
Mhm.
I want the ease because I want to be able to fulfill what I'm supposed to fulfill. Because I felt literally like I was tied up. I couldn't do the work. Although I did, I moved through it. And again, as I said, it was the evil trainer at the gym that said, I want you to give me 10 more, you know. But what Spirit said to me, without that care, you need to lead humanity through the transit. If you didn't go through this, you wouldn't have the resiliency. What you demonstrated by going through all of this, and you still managed to teach and do everything that you're doing, you demonstrated your discipline. You demonstrated your resiliency and your ability to remain focused. And that's what you're going to need to help guide humanity through the changes that are going to happen between now and the galactic equator crossing. So it's not that it was a wasted time. It was training. Okay, it's like going to the gym and you have this trainer that keep telling you to do more crunches. And as you keep doing the crunches and keep doing the crunches, although your body's trembling, your whole stomach is trembling and you're shaking, your legs are wobbly. And, within a few months, you're walking past the mirror, you're like, oh my God, it looks, I think I'm seeing an ab. I'm seeing actual muscles.
And didn't you say that the degree of resistance and struggle in your life may be related to the degree to which your destiny, the level of your destiny will perhaps, the higher that is, the higher is the level of struggle?
Yes, there is a correlation between, well, it depends. Because there are certain people, certain clients that have this victim mentality. And the suffering, I remember talking to somebody very recently before we talk about this, the suffering is noble, okay? And there's a lot of, what's the word? Public sharing of the struggle. I've gone to the hospital because of this condition, blah, blah, blah. There's a litany of like, I can't believe that, and this goes on and on and on. And I'm having a conversation. I said, stop sharing the stuff.
Mm.
First of all, you don't know who's listening. That's the first thing. The old people always said this. Don't say it out loud. You don't know who's listening. Second, you don't know of all your so-called friends that you have on Facebook. These people are not your friend. Some of them may have evil eye against you. And I mean by evil eye, it's not that they're going to cast a spell, But when you have a blessing, and I experienced this, and I'm going to share a story with you that's clearly happened years ago, and I will never do this again. Years ago, when I had the council of my advanced students, I took a trip to three of the earth chakras, one in Bali, one in New Zealand, and one in Australia. And I took a month off from work to do this. And whilst doing this, I didn't post it on Facebook. I sent them private email because it was a private group. I would, after every 2 days or 3 days, I would write a summary. And I was going from one spiritual pilgrimage site to another. And I would share with them everything that was going on and how phenomenal this was. Because I didn't go there with the intention of doing it just for me, but for the work. Because I saw the council, my advanced student, the group, as being, as all of them being with me. When I went to Tita on pool, which is a bath, which is like the kidney of the planet, and I was bathing myself and washing myself, I didn't just wash myself and my own body and ask for cleansing for myself. I asked for every student I had, or I will have in the future. I asked for the whole council. I was doing it with them. And when we got to New Zealand, which is the last stop, all of a sudden we landed. I spent 6.5 hours trying to rent a car. Every credit card that I had was denied. Even bank cards were denied, even though I called the bank and they said, the money's there, run the card again. Go to an ATM, try to get money. It's there, we released it. I couldn't get the money. The only way we were able to move from there and go to a hotel is because there was one credit card that I had not used in years that was still there and valid. I said, run it through this, and it worked. And I did a lot of Ho'oponopono, and when I went in meditation, I realized somebody in the council has evil eye against me. They feel somehow jealous and envious, not as an evil thing or casting a spell. It's just a human thing that if you're going with great ease and things seem to be so good with you, somebody in the group was feeling a certain way and projected a desire to take it from you. I did a lot of Ho'oponopono toward the council. 3 days later, we were in a different town. I was using that same credit card. We're in a different town. All of a sudden, we passed an ATM machine, and it came to me that the energy is removed. Because when you're saying the Ho'oponopono, when the resistance is there for what you're saying, it's solid, solid, solid. And when it's removed, you feel like you're going in. And I'm like, stop the car. And I went to the ATM. I got $400 out. And by the way, I was traveling with companions. None of their cards worked as well. We all tried. It didn't work. So I told them, go get money. And the resistance was removed. When I got back to New York, one of my other council members, student, told me that this one woman had a fit where she exploded with rage and anger over the ease that I had. And that she deserved to have that ease. She went ballistic. And the funny thing, she didn't know that that other council member told me this. We were in class and I was describing this and telling them, I will never do this again. Blah, blah, blah. And then she stayed very quiet and she said, around what time was this? And I told her the time. And then I said, what did you ask? She said, oh, no reason. Because she now realized that her envy and her jealousy was the reason for it. And there were reasons for her. I'm not blaming her. She's a human being. She had a very abusive husband that didn't give her any money. And she was struggling, trying to put herself in graduate school. And this is the way her body reacted at the time. But I will never do that again. So when I see people on mass media that are posting all of these things about how well they are doing and blah, 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 and their influence, I wish them luck. I would never do anything like this. I wish them a lot of luck because that one experience was enough for me. So I was talking to this one person before we sat, where she was posting all of her woes and all of her problems. I said to her, you don't know these people. Well, if I can't do this, then I don't want to be in this world. I said to her, we see what you just said there? This is the way the dark forces are penetrating you. So to answer your question, long answer to your question is that when there's a certain kind of victim mentality that actually likes their suffering. And maybe in this lifetime, and I'm hoping that this person I was talking to overcomes this, but it feels like in this lifetime, she's not prepared to learn it. To stop being a victim and say, I'm taking responsibility. Because I did a healing for her. Because she was in the hospital and was suffering. And I said, now you're going to get better. And she did get better immediately. And then she said to me, I don't think I'm ready to accept it. 2 days later, she was back in the hospital. So there is a certain kind of mentality that's not ready, because there is no reason for the suffering to continue. The moment your consciousness elevates and you can get past, you break the glass ceiling, it's just ease. Did that answer your question, Janice?
It gave me a lot to think about. Thank you.
Yeah, because for me, that experience with the council was immense for me. Because I didn't know what I was going to do. And we were on speakerphone. The people I have to say from the rental place and the hotel, they were lovely. They were absolutely angel. They waited 6 hours for us, trying to struggle. And the two other friends I was with, they're like, let's put in my car. None of it worked. And then I remember there's a card that I've never used. And I'm like, let's try this credit card. That was after 6 hours. Then they said, I remember the banker said, go to the ATM now and check. Try to take some money out to check. We left them. We went to the ATM. We came back to call the bank again. It didn't work. And as we were talking to the bank, I said, I have $6,000 in the account. They said, I know, I see the money there. I don't know why I can't access it. And because I've traveled, I'm an experienced traveler, before I go to any place, I let the bank know I'm going to be in this country, in this state, so that when they see the charges and the ATM charges and everything else, they know somebody didn't steal my card. I'd already given them my itinerary. There was no reason for it except the evil eye. So once we need to be very careful how we share certain kind of information. Because sometimes in the sharing of that information, in this day and age, particularly on mass media, from all the people who are influencers or stars or whatever in the public eye, they're calling this the so-called evil eyes, the cancel culture. And you may hear that on when you're watching stuff in the news. For whatever reason, when you post certain kind of things, people who are jealous and envious of you in their little basement, because they're angry and they're agitated, they post all these evil things toward you. And they ask, for example, for people to stop watching and stop buying your products, or particularly if you're selling something like a movie, don't go to the movie, and before you know it, your project collapses. So one has to be very careful about this. And the collapse of these projects, the collapse of all of these things, guess who's behind it? The resistance. These people that are doing this are just a pawn. That consciousness is doing this. That's why you pray to Archangel Michael to remove the obstacle from a top level. But you only ask Michael, to do this when you are ready for that kind of ease. You wouldn't, like this person I was talking to before we started, she point blank told me, I don't think I'm ready for this kind of miraculous change right now. Because she identified with the suffering and the pain, although she was in severe discomfort and pain. She identified with it. It's an identity for her. For as long as I've known her, she's always been sick. She's extremely gifted and talented, extremely. It's sad. I'm thinking about her. It's a very sad condition because she should be winning. She should be, visible and happy. So as we move through this kind of like situations where we begin to identify, because as you're doing this kind of prayer, you're going to see these things. You're going to, and things that you didn't think about are going to pop up for you. And things are going to happen sometime in a miraculous way, in a way that will give you information that you couldn't have access any other way. In a lot of cases, as I said, relationship that you have, you may have a hidden enemy, like the student I was talking about before, this member of the council. She eventually left because, again, from that point forward, I never trusted her again. I would be a fool if I were to. I never kicked her out. I didn't tell her that I knew what she did. I just kept that information to myself, but I never completely trusted her. So you will get during and after doing this kind of protocol, you're gonna see and know things where you're gonna see in your life the people who are being truthful and the people who are being deceitful. You're gonna see what you should let go of, and you have to shift and lean your identity into what works to bring the flow, to bring the ease, and surrender and let go of what's not necessary. In other words, you have to purge. Because sometimes you're in a relationship with somebody and that person is a taker, and all they do in your life is take. They give nothing back, except an occasional, I'm grateful, well, thank you so much, and I appreciate, and after a while, it's just platitude because there is no real reciprocity. And it might get to a point where that becomes old. Well, like, no, I need to, it's giving and receiving equally. I need to also receive something. And therefore, I'm letting go of all of this. You're undeserving of the gift that I'm giving you. I'm walking away. I'm letting go. Any thoughts, any idea, any questions that you may have? Now, coupled with this, I don't mean to say that everything that's happening in the transit is going to be about that kind of intensity, where you're noticing resistance all the time that you have to release. And there are days like today where the energy is so intensely positive, like charged with these negative ion and this incredible sense of euphoria, that you have a sense, and this is the reason why I've shared this with you before, and some of you have experienced this because many of you have have gone to WISAC with me for many years. And you know that before WISAC brings so much light and so much energy into the world that a lot of time the participants that are coming to WISAC, if they didn't do any undeservedness, honopono, neutrality kind of work to remove their shame. Remember, WISAC is in the valley, up in the mountain in Tibet. A lot of the pilgrims that go there during the festival, they literally kneel on the ground. They bow down all the way, prostrate themselves on the floor, and they get up. And they do this for days to get to the valley as a way to do penance so that they can do, so that the light, they can remove their shame, so that the light they're going to receive, they can accept it. And I'm saying this because in the context of what we are, the planet Deus Ex Machina is experiencing right now, without you doing anything, without me doing my protocol and having to do, you know, all the lineup that I do in the morning to bring my consciousness in with connection with God. In days like this, I just wake up. And the ease, it's like I have a giant flashlight in my core. The ease is there. And when I begin to do the lineup, I keep hearing all the time, it's already there, Pierre. You don't need to do it. It's done. You don't need to try to push a safe uphill when there is no safe. You don't need to do it. But tomorrow may be a completely different story. Tomorrow, there's not only a safe, but there's a boulder on top of the safe. So you need to push it up. You need to do all the lineup. But what I'm saying is that it's peaks and valleys. This is the way the bridge toward the new earth will look like. It's peaks and valleys. There are days where you're going to have the peaks where it's so high and so intense, even the light of the sun seems different. It's euphoric. And there are other days where the fear, the panic, the paranoia, and the way your mind works, you have a sense that two things will happen, or you keep changing. One day you think, this is what I should do. The next day, no, this is what I should do. And there's so much paranoia, and you have no, and so much internal doubt that you have no sense, no clarity as to which is the correct path for you. I've said this before, the true path never comes as a light thing, because when you're in the paranoia or you're completely frontal lobe and you're going back and forth between two things, it's this way, no, it's that way, no, it's this way, it's that. It's very loud. Okay, you're in your head. It's very loud. So, but when you go into your heart space and you hear that vague, quiet little whisper that tells you it's this way, and it's never a bipolar thing. It's a complete knowing. It's a third path. It's a complete knowing. I want to add to that knowing and that complete knowing is the voice of God is a gentle whisper. It's not a loud voice. The loud voice is your own internal demons that are trying to confuse you. And you need to be very aware of this to try to find clarity. In other words, all the protocol, the spiritual protocol, is a way for you to quiet the mind down and to bring yourself, and breath control, whatever you want, meditation, to quiet you down, to get you into your heart space so that you can begin to let the whisper, the heart whisper, take over. And you will know the path that you're supposed to follow. Now I'm going to add one more thing to our conversation today. And it is the relationship that exists between from now until October between Mars being so close to the planet and Mars now squaring Jupiter. You need to be very careful with that configuration because it will tend to agitate in you rage, anger, and victimization. One of the things that I dealt with for the past 2 days, not today, but the past 2 days, was a sense that I've been wrong and therefore I should go on the attack and I should call people out and curse them out and blah, blah, blah. And again, it's because of the proximity to the Earth where Mars is positioned right now. Mars is about war, conflict, etc., and it's being amplified by Jupiter. And thus, the potential for global war is very high, but also internal and external war. And you will notice even in the streets, we are in New York, and in the streets of New York right now, there's a lot of crazy, there are people who are very loudly agitated and talking to themselves and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's related to that configuration. And we have to be very careful because of the last 2 days, I desire, and I'm going to text, I'm going to do, and I'm like, no, do not text. No, do not send anything. Do not email, do not call, do not, resist. You can feel all kinds of internal ways, but I cannot allow myself to behave in a way that comes from reactivity. I have to make sure that it comes from an ascended place. Because if it comes from reactivity, because when you're in a relationship with people in your life, there are certain things you should never say, because the moment you say it, you cannot take it back. You cannot take it back. So it's very clear to me that during the past 2 days, as it's happening, and I struggle a few times. I got very close. I type a few texts. I'm like, delete, do not send, do not send, do not send email, do not, and remain and understand. And this is the ping pong I was talking about between two things. You become so paranoid that your mind is fabricating and making connection between things that don't have connection. This is the Mars, the warrior, the battle that's trying to set you up. And guess what? The resistance and Satan is behind it too. So with that awareness, you need to chillax. In the second ray, one of the definition of the higher aspect of the second ray is serene temper. You need to embody what that means. So when you have these moments where you feel you should tell this person off and say this, and you find yourself in situation where you're arguing and you're saying things that you shouldn't be saying. And if that is the case, walk away. Just walk away. Mid-sentence, walk away. I go to the bathroom. Walk away. Because a lot of time you may say something and then later on realize I should have never said this. But there are certain damage that your tongue causes by what you say that are irreparable. So be aware of this and be aware of what, and for that matter, people will try, and the reverse is true. People will try to attack you. In a work situation, people will literally try to attack you for what appear to be no reason why, and they're completely unreasonable and completely whacked out because of this configuration. In this instance, again, 1, 2, 3 step. First, realize it's a test. Second, as they are going about performing and doing whatever, don't respond, just look at them and count to 10, 20, 30 until and disconnect, create a distance between you and them. They're not talking to you, they're talking to a ghost behind you. Disconnect. And when they are done, typically you'll have an insight in their own spiritual struggle and psychology and the true reason why they're so agitated. and then do the opposite. The third step, do the opposite. That part we need to be monitoring between now and the end of October. There are many things I wanted to say, I wanted to do the past 2 days that I've kept completely to myself. Encase them around me and nope, don't say it, don't say it. Don't bring it up, don't bring it up. And it's not stifling your voice, rather, it's having wisdom. Because wisdom is power used rightly. Your words are power. And when you speak, you decree into the universe. There are certain things that should not leave your mouth. I remember Angelina Jolie did a movie, it's a children's movie, where she was, what's that character? Maleficent. And she cast a spell against a little baby, etc. And then she realized she loved the little baby because she kept on monitoring the baby. She wanted the baby to be dead and all that. And she actually fell in love with the baby. She tried to undo the spell. She couldn't undo it. Because she already decreed it into the world. Be careful. And some of you may have experienced this with your friends, family members, particularly in work-related situation, either because you became the abuser or somebody tried to abuse you or try to engage you into a conflict. Any questions, any comments about this? I'm not an astrologer, so you might want to consult an astrologer to kind of know the detail, but generally speaking, I can only share what I have been feeling and what I've experienced for myself as far as energy is concerned, that there is this, it created a kind of internal paranoia that caused me to overanalyze everything and become oversensitive about everything.
It strikes me that, as we were talking earlier about the epigenetic backflow, that this practice of blocking the normal, perhaps, reaction that one might have to being abused, in this sense, is also creating a positive effect at not continuing that. That process. So on a collective level, it seems that might have the benefit, because I'm sure that every part of us or every one of us that is reacting negatively contributes to the collective rage that is also impacting the planet and all of the systems surrounding nature. And that might be our contribution to stopping that part that's so hurtful.
Yeah, that's a very good analysis, Janice, because we are all plugged into the collective karma of the planet. And if you're working on yourself and you're trying to stopping yourself from being reactive, and in the process of doing this, you're disconnecting yourself to that matrix, to that kind of like epigenetic planetary, at this instance, we are already at war. Planetary Russia and Ukraine are at war. So if you can disconnect yourself to that grid, to to whatever contribution you may have, it's gonna ultimately help the planet to find peace.
Good.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Any other comments or questions? All right, let's take a 5-minute break, and then in the back end, we'll do the closing meditation. 5 minutes. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Let your mind and your heart sync with each other. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your entire self-awareness emanate from your heart space. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. Become aware of any sensations, perceptions, and knowing that may want to show up for you. And the guardian alliance of light approach you, offering to gift you their shields of light and protection and a band of neutrality. If you're ready to accept this gift at this time, answer affirmatively and let the energy of the first guardian rise from the core of the earth, counter-rotating, passing through the bottom of your feet, moving through you, exiting outside of your head and into source, while creating all around you a torsion field of light and neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. The axis at the top of your head extends, and it attracts now the energy of the second guardian, cascading down from source, passing through the top of your head, rotating clockwise, moving through your body, and going into the core of the earth, while creating all around you a torsion field of neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. The axis at the bottom of your feet extends, and it attracts now the energy of the third guardian, moving upwards while rotating clockwise, passing through you, exiting outside of your head, and going into source, while creating all around you a torsion field of neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. The axis at the top of your head extends, and it attracts now the energy of the fourth guardian, cascading down from source, passing through your head, moving through your body, and dropping into the core of the earth, while creating all around you a torsion field of neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. The axis at the bottom of your feet extends, and it attracts now the energy of the fifth guardian, rising from the core of the earth, passing through the bottom of your feet, moving through you, exiting outside of your head and going into source, while creating all around you a torsion field of neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. The axis at the top of your head extends, and it attracts now the energy of the sixth guardian, cascading down from source, rotating clockwise, moving through the top of your head, passing through you, dropping into the core of the earth, and creating all around you the torsion field of neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. The axis at the bottom of your feet extends and it attracts down the energy of the seven guardian, counter-rotating, moving through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, exiting outside of your head and going right into source, and creating all around you a torsion field of light and neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. The axis at the top of your head extends, and it attracts now the energy of the eighth guardian, cascading down from source, rotating clockwise, passing through the top of your head, moving to your core, and going into the core of the earth, while creating all around you the torsion field of light and neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. The axis at the bottom of your feet extends, and it attracts now the energy of the night guardian, counter-rotating, moving through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, exiting outside of your head, and creating all around you a torsion field of neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. The axis at the top of your head extends, and it attracts down the energy of the 10th guardian, cascading down from source while rotating clockwise, descending through the top of your head, passing through your core, exiting through the bottom of your feet, and into the very core of the earth, creating all around you a torsion field of neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. The axis at the bottom of your feet extends, and it attracts now the energy of the 11th guardian, counter rotating, moving upwards to the bottom of your feet, passing through you, exiting outside of your head, and going into source while creating a torsion field of neutrality. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. The axis at the top of your head extends, and it attracts now the energy of the 12th guardian, cascading down while rotating clockwise, passing through the top of your head, moving through your body, exiting the bottom of your feet, and going into the core of the earth, while creating all around you a torsion field of light and neutrality. Observe the 12 counter-rotating axes that are spinning in your core. May the peace, the neutrality, the stillness, the acceptance, and the love that I know with serene temper, to everyone in my circle of influence. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Pierre. That felt really good.
Glad to hear that, Janice. Very happy to hear that. I want to thank all of you for listening. I hope the instructions and the discussion was useful tonight. I want to thank all of you on Patreon for your support. Also, like this video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you next week. Blessings to all of you. Thank you so much. I love you. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Love you.